Hello and welcome to another ohmTown on Twitch. So welcome to ohmTown. I'm Mayor Watt. That's what I go by on Twitch and elsewhere. Tonight we're going to run through the news like we've been doing for the last month. Today is February 3rd, 2022. Let me turn down this music a little bit more. So, I'm running a little harried, so forgive me if I sound rushed. Hopefully I can play catch up here in a minute. But I wait for no one, so I am going to continue with the news today. If you go to ohmTown, you will notice that it's broken into these 6 categories. This is kind of a quick rundown for every VOD that I do, at least for the time being. Kind of a quick intro, maybe not so quick. But it's broken into these 6 categories: create, news, education, entertainment, social, and technology. There might be a business one that comes that breaks up some of the stuff that is currently categorized within one of the other 6 areas. I don't know just yet. But what I do is I grab some headlines that my aggregator has been grabbing over the last 24 hours, and then I either talk about it from a brand new perspective, and hopefully if you're in chat or you stumble across this stream, you come in and you say hi and say, well, I heard what you said and I don't really buy into it. Yeah. And, but I've already done some of this. I've got about 18 articles today. I'm going to try and go through them in the hour time frame. Again, I might extend it, but there aren't a lot of people that are coming into chat. So, and not too many people have been making comments. So I guess I'm just going to stick to the hour until, I guess some more people are interested. So feel free to say something in chat and let me know that this is still interesting or worthwhile. I think it is. It's fun to stream, and it's great to go through this news in a somewhat meaningful way. I mean, to me, it's new information and interesting. And that's why I aggregate what I do. And that's why I select them for discussion in this VOD. They will start getting posted to YouTube, and I'll start linking via Twitter as well. But I'm not doing anything on Facebook. I'm not doing anything on LinkedIn. I'm not doing anything on Instagram. I'm not doing anything on TikTok. I mean, I know about all of that stuff, but that's not where I'm interested in doing the marketing in the show. I really want to just focus on Twitch because I like the real-time interaction. That's what I've been doing with other streamers over the last decade. I should have started this a decade ago. Hopefully this music isn't too loud. Let me know in chat if it is, or let me know in a message if you see this later on. I'd have to re-record, but anyway, I'd have to modify my recording. Let's get on with it. My goodness. Rambling for 5 minutes. This first article is new catalysts steer hydrogen fuel cells into mainstream. Cornell chemists have discovered a class of non-precious metal derivatives that can catalyze fuel cell reactions about as well as platinum at a fraction of the cost. And that right there is pretty much the driving force for any adoption of technology. If it is too expensive, it odds on will not reach critical mass, so to speak, and then be put into production. It just doesn't work. If the new solution is too expensive to go mainstream, it's not going to go mainstream, and thus it doesn't make any economic sense to grow it. This is almost predicted immediately upon the creation of that technology. But then over time, people test it again, come up with some new evaluation tools, find another way to optimize it, make it more efficient. And then eventually it becomes cost effective, or it proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that it never will be. And then it dies in relative obscurity. So when you click the link, it'll take you over to phys.org and goes into greater detail. But this is part of that whole tactical to practical kind of concept. And in many ways, it's always a doctoral student or a fundamental researcher that's working on their degree, their doctoral PhD, or some graduate school level research, and come up with some new technology. And I think that's great. Anything that lowers the cost and accessibility to power can change the dynamic and our dependence on things like oil, which is eventually going to run out. Don't know exactly when. Lots of people have been predicting it for 20 years or more. There was a thing called peak oil. And we're still pumping ever more oil out of the ground. What needs to happen really to pull us away from oil dependence is finding something that is renewable, like energy. But I have concerns about energy and wind, and they're primarily about the defensibility of them. It's impossible to defend solar panels against harm. Same thing with wind power. One destabilizing event on a blade and a wind generator will tear itself apart. But oil is defensible. You can store it underground for extended periods of time. It does decompose over time, so you have to rotate it out. And so the discussions about strategic reserves being quote unquote used is largely marketing hype, in that we are always we're rotating out our stock so that it doesn't decompose and just decay in its barrels, because it's an organic compound. So it's going to fail at some point. And we're going to keep on using it up. And so we need something like hydrogen fuel cells that are defensible, they're portable, you can build them big or small. Obviously there's a physics scale there that will require a minimum size for power. But we've had fuel cell technology, hydrogen fuel cell technology that powers laptops and cars and pretty much everything. So making something more cost effective would be great. So the next article is critics say GOP bill in Alabama would decapitate public education. So without getting into the political side of this, it says GOP bill. But this it's a Common Dreams article. Pardon me. That last article, by the way, was by Joshua Krish from Cornell University about the hydrogen fuel cells possibly using a cheaper catalyst and being brought into mainstream. This other article is from Common Dreams. Kenny Stansel is the author of the article. What is written is progressive critics are warning that Alabama Republican Senator Del Marsh's so-called Parents' Choice Act, which advanced out of committee on Wednesday, would, quote, end state support of public education. And you know, this is actually about removing, as far as I understand it, removing teaching biology, pulling public investment out of public education. And let's see what else is in here. Right. So there's a lot that's going on right now with public education and trying to pull things like biology and evolution out of it. There's a lot of talk about putting cameras in. Suddenly they being these proponents of burning books and putting cameras in the classroom to quote unquote stop educators from wavering off a particular path, which to me is rather absurd. But it's all about trying to limit education. And I'm always troubled by this kind of thing because education is fundamental. You must get a holistic education so that you are aware of things that are things going on in the world. You can't just, it's kind of like testing for COVID. Well, if you don't test, then you don't have any numbers saying how many people are sick. So therefore it's gone. And that is kind of like burying your head in the sand or willful ignorance. No, you have to educate people, and society tax dollars feed into teaching society for generation after generation after generation, and society is better for it. And where information diverges from opinion is where school is, right? So what is taught in a school is fact, not opinion. You know, it is demonstrable what evolution is. It's demonstrable about science, math, physics, engineering, technology. All of this is fact. Sociology, psychology. In certain areas, there is categorization, there's aggregation, there is hundreds of years of documentation aligning certain ideologies, certain facts, and frankly, trying to pull the public out of public education will do society a disservice. But that is my opinion. Obviously, Alabama and the people that are steering Alabama's education system are going down a particular path. And it's going to be because of the way that states align and people align. It is going to end up being Alabama having to decide for themselves. Unfortunately, that is the way that things are. It says SB 140 would siphon off at least $420 million from the state's education trust fund and allow parents to apply to use that cash to pay education service providers or vendors. So basically, taxpayer dollars would be siphoned away so that private people can use their previously private money to pay for private whatever. And that's what private school is. But if you do that, you pay it again. Pardon me 1 second. I'm going to have to, this is going to be weird. Anyway, pardon me. My goodness. At any rate, This article is a lot longer. Go and check it out. It's over at Common Dreams, and it's titled Critics Say GOP Bill in Alabama Would Decapitate Public Education. But this is coupled to other things. It's just kind of an onslaught against education right now, based on my observations of certain news that's coming around, kind of fast and furious. This next article is exploring the strategies of categorization. And I'm going to click this link, phys.org. And it's, wow, I won't be able to pronounce this correctly. Ruhr Universität Bochum, I guess, or Bochum. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. I'm sure that it's probably easier to say with the right inflection. But this is talking about categorization, and what caught my eye about this is that I do this on the regular across a multitude of things. And this quick little sentence is kind of fundamental to understanding this. Colloquially, this is a quote from the article. Colloquially referred to as pigeonholing, categorization learning often has a rather negative connotation in the public eye. Yet, the basic cognitive ability to categorize offers a significant advantage. It condenses the flood of objects and events in our environment on the basis of commonalities and makes the knowledge that we have accumulated usable for new experiences. And that's really what things... When we quote unquote judge a book by its cover, it isn't necessarily bias. It's categorization. If you see a steampunk style artwork, then you instantly frame it as being a steampunk style book. If it has anime on it, I should say, if it has line drawings in a certain style that aligns with the category of anime or manga or something else, we categorize it, and we do it all day long. And really, there's no harm in it as long as you understand that it's just a category and not a bias that is making you make a decision totally on nothing more than judging a book by its cover. So when you're aware of it, then you can treat things a little different. You know, not everything that is the various shades of blue are the same as long as you understand it. Well, some people take it to the extreme and provoke a negative response to a categorization, right? And that's where you end up with racism and things like that, where a person with glasses is quote unquote a nerd, or a person who plays football is a quote unquote jock. So you can have negative connotation to a categorization, but if you are aware that you are doing it, or the way that you are categorizing isn't based on that negative connotation, you're basically just categorizing things, and it can be rather harmless. It's just the context at which you're using it. And we could continue on with this article at a later date if someone is interested in this. But they talk about, biopsychologists trained the pigeons. This is a pigeon experiment. To distinguish between digitally produced images on the screen and divide them into categories by pecking at the monitor. And so this is using nothing more than animals to do X, Y, or Z action based on reinforcement. So I'm sure that it gets into greater detail and argues about its use within its application in human space, but this is, to me, it's limited to animal perception of this or that kind of thing. But they're bigger brains than me, so you got to give them that credence. Go and read that article, come back, talk to me. Maybe you have a PhD in bird brains, and you might be able to help me figure it all out. The next article is in Mobile. It's aggregated from New York Times. When you click the link, you get taken there. This article is by John Koblin. It says last year, NBC sports executives called out Tokyo Olympics their most challenging undertaking ever. Now that experience is starting to look like a cakewalk. For this month's Winter Games in Beijing, NBC confronts an even trickier mix of challenges threatening to diminish one of the network's signature products and one of the last major draws to broadcast television. Well, I can tell you that this generation of people and last generation of people and the generation prior to it, so I'm probably the tail end of 4 generations ago. That's not quite true. I'm not that old, but I can tell you that people aren't tuning into this generation in particular, aren't that interested in the Olympics. Let's see. I'm checking something real quick. And I'm not even going to edit this afterwards. This is just going to stay exactly how it is. I'm really curious. Yeah, people are probably watching it, not watching it, but they're monitoring the Olympics by way of other means. They're not tuning into it via the TV so much as they are using other tools to engage in watching or monitoring the Olympics. And I'm looking for the stats because it says the Olympics social media accounts now have a combined total of 75 million followers, which is an article that was posted last year. And I think it's largely changing. People aren't watching TV the way that I think the old normal has been, and then the pandemic just kind of exacerbated everything. And the new normal, which is a frustrating phrase for some people, is going to be people are streaming little segments. They want it on demand. They want to be able to get tidbits of it in a short form format. And sometimes there's a large population that wants long form discussion and articles about certain key people or events or something within it. It really depends on the writer and the charisma that writer has in written form. But with all of the stuff that comes out about various countries and somebody being accused of this or that, and I mean, it just seems like every time there is an event or there's an Olympics, something springs out from the shadows to speak ill of the event. Not to mention it's rather tight-fisted on how you can consume. This modern consumer wants to be able to consume however they want to consume it. Streamers want to be able to stream it and interact and talk with their audience about it. But everybody is going to end up with a DMCA takedown if they even mention the word Olympics, because it's been copyrighted, trademarked for use by a certain organization and licensed to be used by other organizations. It's kind of a hot mess. So I don't know. Flexibility, I guess, is going to be key here. But let's move on. Under the Wanted show is an aggregated article from Ars Technica. I'll click on that link just so that you can go and see it. It's by Andrew Cunningham. PCIe 5.0 SSDs promising up to 14 gigabytes per second of bandwidth will be ready in 2024. So as long as this is SSDs and not in the M.2 form, right? You're looking at an increase for an SSD that is just spectacular, because right now it's like 500, 600 megabytes. This is moving it up to 14 gigs per second, which is spectacular. And I really hope that this comes out and makes a big impact, because right now it, as more software is released that's bigger, it takes advantage of higher end graphics and better audio. Programs are getting bigger. I'm speaking of games, by the way. I mean, a lot of programs don't take up a lot of space, but games take up a ton because you normally have several of them. And with providers of software like Steam, and the various other vendors now, Origin has it. Who else? Prime, Epic. Oh, goodness. It just goes on and on. Anyway, again, GOG has it. They've got these loaders, and it's so easy to purchase and download and store it that we need bigger and faster drives, hands down. Gone are the day of mechanical drives. They're going to fail on you so much faster. One wrong move, you bump your case, for crying out loud, and something might cause it to fail. So I don't think there's a price yet. I think this is still a developing article, but it'll be ready in 2024. We're in 2022. Hopefully that target is right. This next article is Commodities Corner over on Market Watch. You click the link, it says coal's not dead and won't be for years to come. And I agree. Coal won't go away because it's cheap. And depending on where it's acquired, it's cheaper than domestically in the United States. Why? Because we have a different cost of living. We have environmental concerns that are monitored vociferously by various agencies. And rightfully so. Why? Because if we destroy the world around us, there isn't going to be anything left for the generations that follow us. And a lot of people think, well, and I do mean a lot of people will say, well, that's a bit hyperbolic, don't you think, Mayor Watt? No, not really. We can make a wrong move and you end up with an entire town's underground on fire. You make the wrong move and you leach lead out of the pipes that you installed because you thought that everything was fine, and you end up with flint. And flint is not the only one, but it's the only one that has like brand name recognition in the United States. Obviously, a lot of this news is is focusing on the United States. And that's because I expect other shows to be local like that. Happy to talk about world news too. If you've got something interesting where you live, then throw it in chat and maybe we can talk about it. But coal is consumed in all places all over the world, and it's dirty, it's messy, it's hard to it's relatively easy to relocate, but it's difficult because it has big volume. You get a lot of energy out of it, but it's messy. And frankly, it's throwing all of its garbage up into the air, and we all end up breathing it. And then it comes back down in acid rain, impacts crops, us as us as human beings breathe it. But it's not going anywhere until it's more expensive than everything else. And as long as it's cheaper, it's going to keep going. And here's the real societal impact. It's not going to go away until it's too expensive to exploit the human capital in foreign countries where it's cheaper and not regulated as demanding as domestically in the United States. And that means that big business will go elsewhere, mine it cheaply, and import it into the United States. That's what we do with a lot of stuff. We go elsewhere because the labor or environmental controls or OSHA or many other regulations, depending on what the segment is, the domain that we're talking about is. Everywhere else, it seems to be cheaper. Well, somewhere else, it's cheaper, and that's where big business goes. And it's all about keeping that profit margin. And I'm sure that I'll get an email or a comment saying, well, it's also about providing it cheaply. Well, interest rates are going through the roof. So, and government is augmenting a lot of sectors to keep those prices low. So we're not really paying the real price. We're paying the marketing price. If people knew how much things really cost, things would change, but we're keeping them at a lower rate because public dollars are going to private companies to keep those rates low. So shares of a Canadian company named Standard Lithium Limited crashed 22% on Thursday after a short seller, Hindenburg Research, which is ironic, published a report alleging that the company's technology does not work and that it's seeking to profit from the hype around lithium batteries for electric vehicles. So I'm going to click this link. And selling something short and then blasting it so that the stock crashes seems to be an unethical event for me. But maybe oversight agencies don't see it that way. I don't know. That just might be my perspective. I'm not the subject matter expert in this particular area. Because this is the first that I've heard of this, but it says it published a report alleging that the company's technology does not work and that it's seeking to profit from the hype around lithium batteries. This might come across similar to Theranos. If the company is hyping that its tech works and it doesn't really work, and maybe there's more to it, this might be something that gets investigated. The company claims that technology allows it to extract lithium in hours instead of the months the process typically requires, using far less land and groundwater than traditional extraction methods. That has made it attractive to companies such as Koch Industries, which became its biggest shareholder last year via a $100 million investment. Koch missed red flags and failed in its due diligence in its haste to deploy capital, Hindenburg said. Well, this is going to be very interesting because if there's one thing that you don't want to do, it's sliding big money. So let me keep going. I'm going to fall behind here and we're going to end up like we were yesterday with only half of what I wanted to talk about. The law students are soft because they can't handle racism. Casual racism. Takes are right on cue. Entering the home stretch on this one. This is an article over at Above the Law. Let's see. The life cycle of one of these law school racism scandals follows a natural progression, but unlike the stages of grief, the course of these skirmishes progress through a predetermined course of victim blaming. It's your fault for not understanding it. It's your fault for not accepting it. that it's your fault for not understanding it. And it's your fault because you're too weak to take it. Interesting. Yeah, this being Black History Month, there's a lot of talk involving race, and I'm not immune to this, right? There's a whole diversity, equity, and inclusion effort across the country, across the United States. It may be happening elsewhere as well, but it's a thing in the United States. And without getting too into it, I think that it's really odd to look at a human being as anything other than a human being, and base your perception on them on the actions that they take. It's rather abhorrent to me to be around somebody that looks at somebody else as anything other than a human being, capable, just as capable as I am in everything, or better. Strike that. Just as capable or better, or worse for that matter. I mean, we are human, we are fallible. But people, a lot of people just, they cannot get past, accepting people for who they are. And I think this comes from me growing up on the internet, where nobody knew anything about race or socioeconomic status or anything unless you declared it. And even in what's called IRC, Internet Relay Chat, it was a thing to ask age, sex, and location. And that was just like a standard thing to find out if a person was a compatriot. And then it turned kind of twisted as people were using it to find out about potential, mates or conquests or whatever you want to call it. And then as we grew more capable and we were able to expend a lot more time divulging data, suddenly socioeconomic status and race and other things came into play, religion and all this stuff. And to me, it just seems weird that kind of stuff matters in a substantive way. Like, I will ask you, or you can divulge to me that you are from this country or that place or whatever it might be, and I will be interested, maybe. And we could find a common ground where, we like the music, we like the culture, we like the artwork or something. And that's what should be happening. But instead, some people take it as, oh, you're from there or whatever it is. It's really weird to me. It's the opposite of being part of a society. And we are part of, not both, but we are part of a multitude of societies, from the hyper local to the global. And I really wish that people would see the world more like that. We can talk more about that at another date, but this is an article about law students, and it's over at Above the Law, and it's by Joe Patrice. This next article is from the Order of the Grape. Sonic Hard Seltzer, now available in nearly half of the United States. I haven't tried this yet. I was really interested in people posting a comment. Are you interested in this kind of stuff? Because at ohmTown, there are these groups: Distillerist, Order of the Bean. So Distillerist is about spirits. Order of the Bean is about coffee. Order of the Brew is about beer. Order of the Grape is about wine. Order of the Leaf is about tea. Yeah, not pot. And then this Mix War group is about making music. Obviously, this one is the most troublesome because DMCA is the battering ram of websites, of engagement, of content creation. The moment that you grab even a snippet of music from somewhere, you'll get a DMCA takedown because everything is automated and lacks context or fidelity. But at any rate, are you interested in talking about this kind of stuff? Beer, wine, in podcasts? Yes. On this, finding out about news and stuff like that. Are you interested in it? I am personally. That's why I aggregate the news like that, because I'm always looking for like a new drink. I don't drink that much, but I like changing it up when I do, pardon me. And so this Sonic Hard Seltzer came out. The seltzer brand from the iconic drive-in chain announced on February 3rd that they have expanded to 21 new markets across the United States, just in time for the Super Bowl. So are you going to go out there and buy some Sonic Hard Seltzer? Hard drinks, hard seltzers, hard ciders are all the rage. So they're getting gobbled up pretty quickly. And I'm going to click the link just so that you can see where it comes from. It's from VinePair. The other day, there was another hard drink, hard lemonade, that came from the same maker of lemonade itself. They just spiked it. And I thought it was really fascinating because it was their branding for it was just a little left to center of what's just the regular brand of lemonade. And I was like, wow, that looks eerily similar to this brand. And sure enough, it was that brand. Anyway, this is by Julia Larson. I think she writes a lot of these articles. And so if the name sounds familiar, it's probably because I mentioned it in a previous article or a previous discussion. So Sonic. And that's some seriously good branding because Sonic has been around for a while, and kind of for me and for others, I think it kind of faded into the noise of regular fast food. And with the pandemic, they gotta diversify, and launching a brand recognized hard seltzer is just another way to get their name out there. Pardon me. Sorry about the coughing. So Order of the Grape, this actually should be in Distillerist. I just don't aggregate that much into Distillerist. But spirit sales see growth for 12th straight year, with tequila soaring 30%. If you are interested in this kind of stuff, I spoke about it, I think it was yesterday or maybe the day before. I'm trying to be holistic in my news, based on the 6 categories that I have. And so I hadn't been talking about spirits. And so I guess I'm kind of making up for it, but get a good sipping tequila someday. You don't have to get big bottles. You can get little bottles and try it. Just try it. And, but if you don't drink too much, you'll be fine. If you've ever had a traumatic experience with tequila, because there's a joke about it. It's not the first drink you have. It's the 7 that follow it. Trying to save the first one. That is what causes people to have a traumatic event with tequila, because it kind of hits hard. And, it's not 4%. It's pretty heavy hitting. And so it has a unique taste. It has a unique effect on you. And, definitely you should get a nice sipping one, and it's like a whiskey, just a completely different experience, and one worth trying. So I'm gonna click the link and show you VinePair, and it's Julia Larson again, and it goes into greater detail about the growth. Volume sales rose 9.3%. for distilled spirits, I guess, in general. But let's see. Overall, the spirits market gained share in the U.S. beverage alcohol market in 2021, rising 1.7% in sales and totaling 41.3% of the entire market, making last year the 12th year in a row that it increased. Which may or may not be good. It's really your take on consuming alcohol. This next article is in the continuity report. It was aggregated from variety.com. I'll click the link. And this is the ongoing thing with Joe Rogan. Spotify's Daniel Ek defends Joe Rogan in hosting content, quote, "we disagree with strongly," end quote, in heated town hall, and stock hits its 21-month low. So leaning into it, either they've got enough runway to basically say, screw all of you haters, we're still going to go with this. They spent a lot of money on getting Joe Rogan in there, and it's brought in a lot of people into their ecosystem. But there's a difference between hosting content you disagree with and hosting content that's factually incorrect. This isn't about opinion. There is no opinion that the vaccines work or masks work or social distancing works, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We know that it works. And it's because the exact same thing happened 100 years ago. 1908, for crying out loud. I think it was 1908 to 1910, something like that, right? We had our own, this exact same thing happened, and a subset of people didn't want to wear masks, and others were vociferous about making people wear masks, and it almost became criminal to not wear a mask. And here we are again, never learning from our mistakes. Wear a mask. It isn't an affront to anything. Yeah, sure, some people are going to have a harder time breathing through a mask. I admit that I think that I do, and others say you're completely wrong. But to me, yeah, you can run with it, you can do everything you need to do with a mask on. But it is without a doubt more difficult to breathe through a mask. Because if it weren't, when you inhale, your mask wouldn't be sucked into your mouth when you're breathing hard. And that's exactly what happens. I don't know anybody that breathes through a mask without that mask getting pulled into their lips. Particularly when you're running. But at any rate, just wear a mask when you're around other people. And that's really where all of this comes from. This is it's about somebody's opinion, and that's the nutty thing about it to me. Is this is Joe Rogan's opinion on it. He's not a subject matter expert. He's not a research scientist on it. He's not doing fundamental research on it. He's hearing from somebody else, people who have the ideology that, yeah, you can stick a what do you call it? A light bulb up your butt and suddenly it's going to kill COVID, or you can drink bleach and it'll kill COVID. Please don't drink bleach. It will kill you and COVID, I suppose, but it'll kill you. So don't do it. But for crying out loud, to lean in on it is beyond irresponsible, in my opinion. So this next article is the continuity report. How the Book of Boba Fett costume designer Shauna Trupp, is it Truppick? Is that spelled properly? Captures the spirit of the original Star Wars trilogy. I love the Book of Boba Fett. Sometimes there's been these quirky little things where, yeah, I guess it is Triptych. Triptych. Yeah, I wonder how that's pronounced. Maybe it's Triptych. Anyway, I just dig it. The with the Mandalorian in tow, Boba Fett being seemingly more peaceful than I remember Boba Fett. But the whole world building is a lot of fun, and the only time that I've ever had an issue with anything from the Book of Boba Fett were that basically what amounts to a biker gang in shiny speeder bikes. It just it didn't sit well for me to see that. And I know that there is a large cohort of people that also saw it that way. But again, that's just my opinion. And much like Joe Rogan, it's just an opinion. Some of my comments are founded in reality and fact and not opinion. This is just my opinion. So I'll always at least qualify it in some way. Yeah, that's my opinion. This next article is the best CPU for gaming in 2022. Every 6 months, whatever it was that came out 6 months earlier is now entirely obsolete. That's pretty much, again, my opinion. But if you have an 8th generation processor, you're able to do everything that a 12th generation can. The only difference really is there's going to be some number shifting, but the GPU is doing greater things for you than the CPU in this stage for a lot of work, a lot of applications, a lot of things. Power consumption changes, some of the efficiencies change, but for the most part, you can get away with an older CPU. What you can't get away with is an older GPU. So this article talks about the CPU and what the best ones are for gaming in 2022. Intel Core i5, 12600K. The K, you'll be able to overclock it. Core i9s they've got more cores in the processor than a Core i5. There's more cache typically, and it's typically faster. But the more cores you have, the more cache you have, the faster your computer is going to be. But again, the bottleneck is probably going to be your GPU when you're playing games, not your CPU. My CPU isn't even being touched in every game that I play. What's getting crushed is my GPU because they don't make enough of them, and I can't go and get a 3080 or 3070. I can't even justify a 3090. And by the time I do get a 3080 or 3070, there's going to be a 40X series coming out. So get what you can afford without going into debt. Otherwise, you'll be paying an ever increasing interest rate during inflation. Shy away unless you know that you can pay it off within a month, maybe 2. Don't go into debt to get a computer. Get what you can afford, save up, and once you have enough to spend on a $2,500 PC, then go. I walked people through a demonstration of purchasing a computer via a website called ibuypower.com. I don't have a relationship with them. I'm not telling you to go over to iBuyPower. That's where I buy my computers from. And they do a bang up job, and their system builder makes it really just drop dead simple to choose all of the components that they have available at a price point that makes sense to them and is affordable to people. But you can easily get to $5,000 building out a system. So again, don't go into debt just to buy a computer. This next article is AMD confirms RDNA 3 GPUs this year and is spending big to, quote, satisfy the demand out there. I would hope so, but the problem here is that while you and I could probably afford a GPU when it's set out on sale at the suggested retail price, what's happening is people are grabbing them before they actually hit the retail floor, and constraining supply and driving the cost up and selling them on eBay and other sources. Facebook, whatchamacallit, pages and other means of selling it. And it's outstripping demand. And things are being artificially driven up. Why? Because there's a lot of money in it, and there are people that are going into debt to acquire a bunch of them and then waiting for it to be constrained and then selling it for 2 or 3 times the purchase price the manufacturer suggested retail price, which historically was higher than what was actually in the retail store. Now you hope that somebody mislabeled something as manufacturer suggested retail price, and that's where you buy it. Good luck. So this is a link. It goes over to PC Gamer, article by Dave James. Goes into greater detail. Obviously, you can listen to it, which I think is great for our website, to have this as an audible article. But we need more competition. We need more manufacturers. We need an open GPU platform where more people can produce the hardware. That's not going to happen because there are so many patents and protections in place for the 2 major players, which is AMD and NVIDIA. Good luck, but we really need an open source GPU platform. If there was an open source RTX GPU platform, I would buy that in a heartbeat. As long as everything was open source and audited by security professionals, I would buy that in a heartbeat. This article is Warcrafters, a working Intel Larrabee graphics card prototype just sold for $5,000. And this is what I'm talking about when I think that the market is constrained artificially. People are willing to buy an Intel Larrabee graphics card prototype for $5,000 just to get another GPU. Okay. Obviously, that's not the intent, but PC Gamer has this article about it. And there you go. A working Intel Larrabee graphics card prototype. $5,000. What do you think? Can you justify $5,000 for a video card? Do you think somebody's going to reverse engineer it? Or is somebody going to put it in a computer and do the meme thing of trying to play some game on max graphics? Crisis? I don't know. The next article is Saucy Cyberpunk 2077 visual novel released with CDPR's blessing. Yeah, you remember there was an ad out there about, where was it? Oh, it's not an ad. It's in the movie Liar Liar, where the woman behind the counter says, how do you like my hair? Or how do you like my outfit? And he replies with anything to take away looking at your hair or something like that. That's kind of this. And I suppose the audience for Cyberpunk 2077, I don't think really has recovered. Again, my opinion. This is an article by Rich Stanton. Pretty much anything Cyberpunk is pretty awesome. It says it's an explicit or safe for work version available. But anything to look anywhere else than Cyberpunk 2077 might be good for Cyberpunk 2077. I have to be careful of where I scroll to because there might be some adult content on there, and this channel is not set up for being adult. Let's see. Dying Light 2 is out there. The reviews have been lackluster. I watched a couple of people playing Dying Light 2. I think it's pretty awesome. As you evolve your character, it becomes more capable. And the parkour elements of it are fantastic. They don't seem to be lagged. They don't seem to be broken. I did witness a couple of crashes in an 8-hour gameplay session. But I think that Dying Light is great in concept. The story, I don't know. It was broken up. I had meetings all day. But here's the article all over on PC Gamer. Who wrote this article? I don't know. I can't see. I can't see the author. I don't really want to scroll through this whole thing. So it's a really in-depth review. But go and check it out. How about that? Oh, Christopher Livingston. There you go. And check out the Dying Light 2 Stay Human review over on PC Gamer. I think it'll tell you a lot about the game and the context for why it got a lackluster review. It has an 84 on it, but it'll hint at what other reviewers are talking about, I'm sure. I didn't read the entire article. This next article is, we're running a little over, is a reality hacker. The article is aggregated from roadtovr.com. So I'm going to click the link, and it's written by Scott Hayden. VR cloud gaming service Plutosphere launches on Quest in beta. So one of the things that I want is VR without wires, and the Quest does that. Anything to pull you away from having a wire, choke you out while you're doing a spin trying to eliminate the enemy, is better than any hardware that has a wire. You cannot get me back to having a cable strung from my ceiling. And the more competition there is out there in terms of platforms that enable people to get the media at a price point that they want with the ease of consumption that they want, is a win for consumers altogether. And unless somebody says, no, I don't want my product on your platform as opposed to on their platform somewhere else, the moment that somebody says no, that's when I start getting, that spider tingly sense, right? Of antitrust. Like, you don't want competition to lower the price of products, and constraining something that's in demand always raises the price, right? And it's largely artificial when you are talking about software, because I'm not taking your bits as a producer, as a publisher. I'm purchasing your hard work and putting it on my computer and using it on my resources and using my gigs of storage, my ions, my electrons, my everything, from the moment that I make that purchase. And so, elasticity of demand kind of stuff doesn't really play into it because it's infinitely distributable. You're not using anything to make a CD. You're not publishing any paper. You're not sending the product anywhere. It's all electrons. So make it cheaper because you're going to reach a whole lot of people. But then again, I'm not the one with a viral product that everyone is raving about. All right. The next article is in Stock Marketeers. U.S. businesses shed 301,000 jobs. My understanding is that it's closer to 400,000. I read it somewhere else. It's still 1 million jobs off from pre-pandemic in the U.S. Again, I read that somewhere else. This article is over at MarketWatch. Omicron kept people out of work and delayed hiring plans early in the new year. Yes, that will continue. I think people are learning that they don't need to travel and can still get work done. It's hard in the service industry. Some states seemingly have not been impacted as much as other states. I will hate to hear that it devolves into political Republican versus Democrat perspectives in states and all of this, because it is not like that. The world is not split apart like that, and it drives me nuts. We are a society. We are a blend and we can get into it more. So if you're willing to, then I'm willing to talk about it more. My particular perspective of things, but please feel free to throw it in chat if you are interested, because you might agree as we talk and engage in discourse. So at any rate, we are still woefully far from where we were pre-pandemic. This next article is, again, pardon me, Intel's choice for Ohio for its $20 billion factory shows what matters at least as much as low taxes, and it costs money. I'm going to click this link here. It takes you over to MarketWatch. Intel's choice of Ohio for its $20 billion factory shows what matters at least as much as low taxes, and it costs money. A sobering lesson for states like Indiana that can compete or even beat Ohio on tax breaks, tax rates, and regulatory environment. So Intel recently picked a county just outside Columbus, Ohio for a site that would of what is to be the world's largest semiconductor plant. This would normally have been in a foreign market with great oversight, but it's being brought back into the United States. I think that we need to be more tactical with our production of key elements. If this can be done at a price point that is effective, then great. I would hope that it will require foreign markets to purchase the chips from the domestic source, which basically means more money coming into the U.S. economy. That will greatly impact inflation and stem the flow of trade deficits. We definitely need more being sold out than consumed in. But that's for the future. To land this $20 billion plant and 3,000 expected workers, the Ohio legislature doubled the time frame on incentives tied to its 15-year commercial activity tax. This tax is assessed on a firm's value, and the incentive now gives employers a 30-year income tax break. So, $20 billion invested into a plant will fund quite a bit of domestic construction. So whoever wins those bids is going to be pretty wealthy. And then the 3,000 expected workers will be generating revenue for their families and the local economy, and everything else that stems from it. And this is kind of where that public-private partnership forms that mesh, where in previous studies, for every dollar that the government spends, there are $8 generated, which is a tremendous amount of money considering trillions of dollars are spent. So you can see how it can generate quite a few multiples. And that's even including some of the stuff that's termed waste, which brings me to the segment of ohmTown, where I talk about FAR, federal acquisition regulations, the rules that bind the federal government to use the acquisition processes in a certain way forbids the government from just running out and selecting somebody. Although there are ways around it, apparently, and in some way, I think that there's some equivocation about how it works. But like sole source providers and stuff, that's really up for debate. But at any rate, there's a lot of misperception about how and what and why the government operates the way that it does. And it's not because it wants to, it's because it has to. And if you want the rules to change to make it so that it's more open to, what amounts to impulse shopping, then you need to lobby your government, your local government. And it in turn will lobby the federal government to change the way that it operates as well. And with that in mind, I think what I'm going to end up doing is ending our show today. I'm going to take you back to the front page. As you can see, here are some of the articles. And when we click the ohmTown front page again, it will repopulate with new and hopefully interesting articles. Stop by, sign up, become a citizen of ohmTown, and come back tomorrow at 6 p.m. and let me know what you think about the articles that you read. And if you copy and paste them into my chat, or you make a comment in chat, even when I'm not here, I will still get them. Because like I've been saying the last couple of shows, my chat is always open and you can always come in and say something. Sound good? Well, thank you very much. And really do appreciate you coming and hanging out in my chat. And see you tomorrow. Bright and shiny at 6 p.m. because it's morning somewhere. See you tomorrow.